Thanks for joining me for the fourth and final part of this video series where we're talking to you about enterprise bargaining agreement negotiations, the challenges that brings with unions and uncertainty not only in industry but internally with our people, and helping them to get the best outcome. So this last part of this series will now talk you through the negotiation to date. So as indicated in the previous part, negotiation is well underway. We've had 5 meetings around the enterprise agreement for home care. It's viewed that the number of meetings will now reduce with the view that we want to move quickly with this agreement. There is some concern certainly from the management team around the success that this will go to vote and get a successful outcome. The challenge with that will then mean that we would need to go back to the drawing board, and that the organisation would have to make some serious considerations around do they continue to proceed with EBA negotiations or how we look to possibly terminate existing agreements that have expired by compensating our employees to remain in the market and a market leader. So there's a number of challenges that still face this organisation around these EBA negotiations with the view that they've still stand firm on one agreement for home care, and that's what we're looking to do to sell. So I can say over the coming weeks there is a roadshow scheduled across all of our 15 locations in Queensland to take them through a presentation on what's changed, what stays the same, and really sell those benefits of moving to a new enterprise agreement in terms of pay rates. There's a view around giving them an incentive on sign-up, like a sign-off bonus of $250, either a gift card or cash. The aim is to work hard to get this agreement over the line to assist our business in managing our client needs and our funding changes. That's how critical this is, certainly for this business moving forward. The business is still pursuing that one agreement as I'd indicated, and the view is then to hold 1 or 2 final meetings to get final feedback from representatives. And then subsequent to that, we have an obligation then to have an access period, which is up to 7 to 14 days, for our employees to consider the agreement, with a view that soon after we would move to a vote process where we have the opportunity to manage that ourselves. We could consult a professional provider in to manage that vote process for us, or we could use the Australian Electoral Commission as well, and they are approved under the Fair Work Act. So in terms of negotiations to date, and probably some tips that I have picked up as part of that process, is the importance for us to remain open, honest and transparent. I don't think we gave due credit to our employees and our unions in understanding their needs, wants and desires. It's really important, I think, that we needed to get our facts right, and if I could bring your attention to some of those facts. Our concern was span of hours and expanding that from 6 to 6 to 6 to 8 p.m. Monday to Sunday. But when we looked at the data, there was 5% of our workforce in our home care business working past 6:30. So afternoon shift would be the entitlement for those individuals, and we're dealing with a small amount of money. So if we were to take that afternoon shift of 12.5% off our employees, and that's 5% of those employees, is it really a big issue? And we'd suggest it's not, but we went out selling the fact that we wanted flexibility. Wages, there was some very clear indications from unions that they wanted award rate plus 5%, and we were offering 1.7 to 2%. So how do we balance those expectations, knowing that we can't put our hand on our heart to say that we're giving more in other terms and conditions, when the view overall is to bring most of those back to the award. So the challenge for us was to increase their rate of pay. The view at the moment is 2.5%, but we're noticing that 1 July, when Fair Work hand down their annual wage decision, that's expected to be 2.4%. So how do we continue to remain in front of the game when we're not increasing rates enough to align them to our Fair Work minimums? Another challenge on the table, and that was certainly flagged by the unions, and then the view was to reduce our travel allowance, which is 78 cents, back to ATO rates, which is 66. Would save us about $100,000. But a passionate issue for our employees is they have to travel, and they rely on that money in terms of supplementing their income. So to touch that would mean that we would create a disengaged workforce. So these are all the things that we probably should have realised well and truly before we made these changes to the agreement, because since then we've conceded and we've made those changes. So it puts a bit of egg on our face around being confident in our negotiations, but also too about the level of openness and transparency that we'd failed to provide our employees. I think it's important too that we should have probably talked to our employees first. We don't, and we haven't talked to our employees, since the expiry of their agreement. We've rolled into the negotiations with some having some knowledge of how to negotiate and some not. So we haven't set our people up for success to make these negotiations as successful as they can be. And lastly, we haven't allowed time for them to get on board either. The clear message from the CEO was this project needs to be completed in 3 months. That was unrealistic. We knew it was unrealistic, and unfortunately we didn't empower ourselves to find our own voice to indicate to our CEO that that just wasn't realistic and the consequences and implications of doing so. So learning's really in all of this process, and although the negotiation hasn't been finished, I'll certainly keep you informed about how the negotiation goes over the longer term. But in terms of learnings, we should have brought our employee and union representatives on the journey in the development of the agreement rather than just preparing it. We should have engaged in dialogue with our employees and unions well before the negotiation occurred. We don't have great relationships with our unions, and clearly we can see that when we're holding the negotiation meetings. We're asking for their feedback, they're committing to giving it to us, but then they're delaying in getting it back to us. So we're emailing agreements out the day before meetings, and our delays of causing us concerns then when we get to the meeting because no one's prepared. So that's the challenge, that we don't have those existing relationships and the level of comfortability to be able to hold them accountable when clearly we're not setting ourselves up for success. Prescare, I'd have to say the organisation hasn't and haven't really engaged employee voice forums or mechanisms, and that's resulted in, I wonder if that will result in the demise of this agreement being voted up. We haven't relied on things like joint staff consultative committees to assist us to create that voice and to touch base and connect with our people about what's important issues for them on the ground. They have had the opportunity to put their claims forward, and some of them have, but I think we've been a little bit slow in being able to respond to their claims, either with a yes, a no, or they're being considered. So I don't know if they feel like we're actually taking, their claims seriously. So that's an important point that I think I need to take away as a learning. Lastly, as I said, with timing, I think we've rushed the process, and I don't think we appreciated the people side enough. So we can be experienced and knowledgeable in how to conduct and run a negotiation with a view to try and achieve a successful outcome. But unfortunately, the nature of this business, the relationships that we'd established, and then the direction and time that we had to implement and roll out a brand new agreement has challenged us. We haven't held our senior leaders to account around that timing. We work with what we've got, and unfortunately as a result we're at this point now where we are unsure about how successful this agreement will be in terms of a yes or no vote. And subject to that, then we'll make other decisions about how we manage that employment relationship with our employees. So thanks for your time. I hope it's been a bit of an opportunity for you to see a real life scenario around negotiating an enterprise bargaining agreement, some of the things that you really need to think about up front before you engage in that process. Work hard to consult, engage and collaborate with a view that it's important that people need to understand openly and transparently around why we're doing these things. And for us it's about flexibility and efficiency, but it's about then maintaining and compromising where you can on conditions to make sure that everybody feels like they've won in this process. Thanks for your time, and if there's more that comes from this negotiation over the longer term, I'll certainly keep you posted. Thank you.